and Jenny Nelson.
Fellow Ohioans, and Mr. President, it is my great honor and privilege to present United States Senator John Glenn today. In many ways, the choices we make over the next week mirrors the living history of John Glenn, because in a strange way, Bob Dole is right about this election. It is about family values. Born on the edge of Appalachia, John Glenn knows that Americans put more value in their children getting a good education. He knows that Americans put more value in people having an equal opportunity to compete in America. Sacrificing his life in the United States Armed Forces, John Glenn knows that Americans put more value in a future that is safe and steady, not fraught with risky schemes that borrow on our future. And of course, John Glenn has been launched by grand ideas, flying into the frontiers of space, that once mystical place beyond our imagination. But Bob Dole, too, has been launched by grand ideas. Large, risky tax schemes, which he claims do not affect our deficit. Large, risky tax schemes that he claims do not touch our Medicare trust fund. And large, risky tax schemes that he claims will not raise our future taxes. Yes, Bob Dole, too, seems to have launched proposals into a mystical place beyond our imagination, just like John Glenn's famous flight into space. But there's one difference. John Glenn landed, and Bob Dole is still in the clouds. John Glenn represents the best of America, because today John Glenn is fighting for all those families' values he learned while growing up in Muskingum County. He's fighting for our senior citizens so they will continue to have the benefits of Medicaid and Medicare. He's fighting for our working families, for unions, for job creation and adequate wages. He's fighting for our future, for educating our children, for health care, for eliminating the nation's debt. And he's fighting for us by fighting for the election of Bill Clinton, because he knows Bill Clinton shares these values. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming United States Senator John Glenn.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Thank you much. Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here today and to be introduced by Ben. I don't know whether all of you know it or not, But just by looking at him, you might be able to tell he was one of Ohio State's star linebackers under Woody Hayes. He did a great job. Speaking of football, how about those Buckeyes of 1996? Go Bucks! Yo! Good. Gonna go all the way this year. They're gonna go. Well, you know, in 1992, Ohio put candidate Bill Clinton over the top on election night, and in 1996, Ohio is going to lead the way again. 4 more years. Elections in a democracy are planning for the future. That's the way we do it. Both sides propose, they are judged on the issues that will build a nation, that will build opportunity, that magic word in our democracy, opportunity for everybody, every single person. But when one side makes the election a time of personal attack, the who instead of the what, the substance, the issues that will really build opportunities for all our people, well, the people in this country are smart. And they see through that. And polling shows that people know that personal invective and innuendo do not build a future for you and me and for our kids. Solid proposals do. And that's why they're supporting President Bill Clinton for re-election to another 4 years. If anybody's undecided, or anybody listening out there or watching on TV is undecided this morning, I think let's just do a little American comparison shopping here for just a moment. We won't try and go through all the issues here this morning. You want to hear the president, and we'll just touch on a couple of them, though. He touches repeatedly on things like security and what we're doing to fight crime, the environment, the economy, and education. And let me just go through those very, very briefly. With security, this president fought by the other side almost all the way, put through the crime bill, cops, putting more cops on the street, violence against women, 24-hour hotline, 3 strikes, you're out, $7.9 billion to help build prisons, assault weapons ban, Brady bill, ban cop killer bullets. That's a record to be proud of in that area. And the other side opposed most of those things. The environment, who doesn't want clean air and clean water? And yet they tried to gut the regulations in those particular areas, and the president fought them to a standstill on that one. And let me talk briefly about the economy, because, you know, it's one of the toughest votes we ever had in the United States Senate. One of the toughest programs to get through was in the summer of '93. And those were tough votes. And the president proposed, yeah, there was going to be a little raise in taxes. It wasn't the biggest raise in history, as they've claimed on the other side, but major cuts to go along with it. And they predicted all sorts of dire things. And what happened out of that when we passed it with not a single Republican vote in the whole Congress? And Al Gore broke the tie in the Senate, and that's how we got it through, by 1 vote in the House, 1 vote in the Senate. And after all the dire predictions, what's happened? The budget deficit has dropped from $290 billion down to $107, announced just as of yesterday. We're headed toward a balanced budget. First time the budget deficit's come down 4 years in a row since Harry Truman. 10.5 million new jobs, real wages up for the first time in 10 years, unemployment the lowest, home ownership the highest in 15 years. Federal employment cut by 248,000, the lowest since John F. Kennedy. That's a record to be proud of. Now, let me talk briefly about one that affects every single student here today, and this one is one I think is so important. And I've talked to the president both privately and I've heard him talk publicly a number of times about this. It's what affects all you students right here today. It's education. Nowhere are the differences more stark between the parties. Nowhere are the differences so clear. If you're going to comparison shop on education and research, those twin pillars of progress that they have tried to cut so drastically. The Republicans propose cutting Head Start, Goals 2000, summer jobs, Pell Grants. We know that you've got to educate the kids. You've got to take the kids at kindergarten and educate them right on up through the college and universities. We know that you cannot build a nation's education and we know you cannot build an education system in our country by taking Big Bird and Barney away from 5-year-olds, school lunches away from 10-year-olds, summer jobs away from 15-year-olds, and school loans away from 20-year-olds. There's an old saying you've heard so many times that is trite, and it is, what you are to be, you are now becoming. And you're smart enough to get a college education, you know what you want to become, but it's more important even than that. We could paraphrase it and we could say what our nation is to be will be determined by the educational opportunities we provide for you. The future of this country in a competitive world depends on your education. Can we compete? Well, my view is this nation can out-educate, out-research, out-invent, out-explore, out-compete any nation on earth if, and it's a big if, we have the right leadership in support of education, not trying to chop it, but build it. I would guess that a good portion of you here this morning have some sort of financial aid to help you get through school. And some of you would have to drop out if you didn't have that kind of help from our government. In our time, this time, now, every single young Ohioan, every single young American should have the choice of higher education, the chance of higher education. That's what President Bill Clinton has proposed. Why? Because it's an election maneuvering, because it'll get a few votes? No. I know from talking to him personally, he believes that the future of this nation depends on the education of people just like you all over this country. This nation depends on you being the best and the brightest generation this nation has ever produced, depends on you being the best educated Americans ever. But you can't do it alone. All of you don't have wealthy parents to send you to school. No government investment is more important. No government investment will have a greater impact for the future, and no government money is better spent as a guarantee for a free and vibrant and world-leading future for this nation than your education. Now, very briefly, what did the other side try and do when they came in and took over control of the Congress? Let me tell you, the 1996 budget resolution. They slashed federal investment in education by 1/3 over a 7-year period. Included in that was cutting student loans by $10.6 billion, reducing Pell Grants, reducing funding for Head Start, eliminating Title I reading and math support for 2 million kids. And in the 96 reconciliation bill, they had a whole bunch of stuff cutting everything, went through, the president vetoed it to his everlasting credit, one of the best vetoes he ever made. 97 budget tried the same thing, 20% cut over 6 years, $6.2 billion cuts in Pell Grants, cuts in college work-study for 800,000 students, cuts in Title I, butchering education at the same time they say how important it is. That's not doing what you talk. That's not following. That's not walking the walk, I can tell you that. So once again, you have a very, very clear choice. You can comparison shop on just these 4 areas that I mentioned briefly this morning. And quite frankly, with you students here this morning, I don't think there's anything wrong with you being just a little bit selfish. What's best for you? Want some help with your education? Well, you should have it. This president supports you. The other side wants to cut your educational opportunities. It's that simple. I think you'll know what to do with that kind of a proposal. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing a friend from Southern Ohio, Ted Strickland. He was in Congress for 2 years. And I hope as we're meeting here this morning, the people down in that 6th district in Southern Ohio are watching this morning and listening this morning, because they can comparison shop. Of all the races where there's a major difference between the 2 candidates, I think this one is it. Ted was narrowly defeated at the end of his first term in that landslide we had before there a little bit in the Congress. But he believes, as I do in these issues, the issues that I've mentioned: environment, security, economy, education. Also Medicare. Talks a lot because a lot of senior citizens down in his area, and the other side wanted to cut the Medicare by some $270 billion to give a tax break of $245 billion, 52% of which, incidentally, would go to people already making over $100,000 a year or up. But his opponent's voting record basically is down the line with Speaker Gingrich. And he voted to cut Medicare on 5 different occasions, voted against education funding, the same as Speaker Gingrich. The people in Southern Ohio want opportunity for their children, their grandchildren. And Southern Ohio is not as wealthy as some of the other parts of our state. They may need a little more help on education down there. And so people down in that 6th district, you have a real choice to make this time. Your choice as to whether you want a world-class education system for your children. That means support for Ted Strickland next Tuesday. So it's my honor to introduce a friend. More importantly, I believe he has the right views on how to build this country, and I look forward to working with him in the next Congress. I'm happy to introduce to you former Congressman about to be, Ted Strickland.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm proud to be here today, and I want to take a few moments to tell you 2 true stories from Southern Ohio. Let's hear it for Southern Ohio. A few weeks ago, my opponent, Congressman Frank Cremines, was visiting a high school in Athens County. And a young high school student stood and asked a question. She said, "Congressman Cremines, don't you believe that we deserve the same high-quality education that students who live in more affluent parts of Ohio deserve?" And the congressman looked that young woman in the eye and said, "You deserve what you can afford." Let me tell you a second story from Southern Ohio. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Benton County, Ohio's smallest county and one of Ohio's poorest counties. I visited a high school with hundreds of students. And as I was talking with the school superintendent, he told me that Benton County High School had no cafeteria. And I said to him, "Where do the students go for lunch?" And he said they walk downtown MacArthur and they get a can of pop and a piece of pizza, or a can of pop and a candy bar. And I said, "Mr. Superintendent, what about the students who would qualify for a free or a reduced lunch? What do they do?" And he said if they want to participate in that program, they would have to walk to the elementary school and eat lunch with the elementary students. And I said, "Mr. Superintendent, how many of your high school students do that?" And he said, "Not a one." That hurt my heart. Think about this, my friends. In this state, in this day, we have a school with no cafeteria. I said to him, "What percentage of your elementary students are on the free and reduced lunch program?" And he said, "Approximately 65%. Now, my friends, those students don't get rich when they go from elementary school to high school. Do you know what happens to a lot of those students at lunchtime? They walk downtown MacArthur, and they don't get a can of pop or a piece of pizza. They get nothing. I am proud that we've got a president who cares about the kids in this country. And one of the President's initiatives, which I believe the next Democratic Congress will pass, is a school construction initiative, which will make available $5 billion between now and the year 2002. And it is my hope that because of our President and because we have a Democratic Congress, that we can pass the President's educational initiatives that will guarantee Hope scholarships and tax deductions and technology training and the America Reads Challenge. And it is my hope that sometime in the future, as a result of a federal initiative supported by this President and a Democratic Congress, that Vinton County High School will have a cafeteria for its kids. It is my privilege this morning to introduce the young woman who will introduce the President. She is a student among you. She is a 21-year-old senior with a double major, dietetics and English. She's the Director of Special Projects for your student government. She's an honors ambassador for this great university. She's a trustee for Campus Partners, which is an urban redevelopment corporation for the university. Her name is Jenny Nelson, and I am proud to present to you one of your own, Jenny Nelson.
Thank you, Candidate Strickland. It has been quite an honor for the undergraduate student government to be able to host this event. From the time that we first found out about the visit, dozens of people and hundreds of man-hours have gone into putting this together. And while our grades and classwork this quarter might not properly reflect our hard work, it has been an incredible opportunity for USG to host both the President and the Vice President of the United States of America here at The Ohio State University. Not only is it a great experience to hear directly from the leaders of our country, but the visits have also drawn attention to the upcoming elections and the importance of the vote. As Student Body President John Carty stated earlier, it is our responsibility as American citizens to involve ourselves in the workings of our nation. We must all strive to educate ourselves on the concerns of our generation and the generations before and after ours. For as we are the leaders of tomorrow, as voters, we are already the decision makers of today, and we must act accordingly. We must vote, and we must vote wisely. For only in that manner can we truly help shape the future of our nation. And now, it is my great honor to present to you the President of the United States of America, Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jenny Nelson. Your fellow student did a good job, didn't she, up here in front of this big crowd? Give her a hand. Thank you. Thank you, Senator John Glenn. Thank you, Senator Ben Espy. Thank you, Ted Strickland, for having the courage to run for Congress again. Your courage should be rewarded, and I hope it will be by the people of Ohio. We have a number of other people here with me today, including our national treasurer and your former state treasurer from Ohio, Mary Ellen Withrow. Thank you, Mary Ellen. And we have another candidate for Congress here today who is opposing the architect of the Gingrich-Dole budget that shut the government down and would have divided the country. Thank you, Cynthia Ruscia, for having the courage to take on that race for Congress. I thank Representative Charlita Tavares for being here, our state Democratic Chair, David Leland, State Senate candidate Mary Jo Kilroy, Bill Berger, the president of the AFL-CIO, Mike Bilirakis, the president of the Ohio Education Association, Tom Mooney of the Ohio Federation of Teachers, Tony Celebrezzi, thank you for being here, and thank you, Ohio State. Thank you, band and cheerleaders, for being here. Thank you all up there. Thank you. On the way in today, your student leaders gave me an Ohio State pin. Your fine basketball coach gave me a jogging suit for the winter that I can run in. And I needed no reminding that your football team is having another wonderful season. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems almost amazing to me that it was 4 years ago that I came here to Ohio State, and we had a great rally outside. Thousands of people, a lot of enthusiasm. I think I stood around for more than an hour to shake hands, talking to you about my hopes for the future. Now, 4 years later, you are about to go to the polls just a week from today to elect the last president of the 20th century and the first president of the 21st century. 4 years, 4 years ago when I came here, I came because I was worried about how you would go into the 21st century, and because I had a vision for what America ought to be like at the dawn of that new era, a country with the American dream alive and well for everyone willing to work for it, a country still leading the world toward peace and freedom and prosperity, a country where we are coming together in the midst of all of our diversity, not being driven apart and divided as so many other countries in the world are. I believe we are closer to that vision today than we were 4 years ago, and I ask you to stay on the right track to build our bridge to the 21st century. Our strategy of opportunity for all, responsibility from all, an American community in which everyone has a place in the table and a role to play is paying off. You heard Senator Glenn say, we have 10.5 million new jobs. Unemployment in Ohio has dropped a third to 4.6%. We cut the deficit by 63%. We've got the lowest combined rates of unemployment, inflation, and home mortgages in 28 years. We have the biggest drop in child poverty in 20 years. We have the highest rate of home ownership in 15 years. Household income is up $1,600. We have now dropping crime rates and dropping welfare rolls for 4 years in a row. We are moving in the right direction toward the 21st century, and I ask you to stay on that track. We are also breaking the barriers that will unleash a future that we can only imagine, and sometimes not even imagine. Many of you students in this audience will soon be doing jobs that have not been invented yet. Some of you will soon be doing jobs that have not been imagined yet. Here at Ohio State and in biotech and biotech centers and firms all across America, new discoveries are being made at breathtaking speed. The United States government just signed a contract with IBM to produce a supercomputer. Wait. Hey, wait. Wait a minute. Just listen to it. Wait a minute. Why are they screaming like that? All right, we heard you. Now, how about the First Amendment? We heard your message. Now you listen to ours. That's right. This is a university. This is a university, and we have respected their free speech. They won't respect ours because they hate the truth. We're better off, and we had to run over them to do it. Now, they must not have any student loans. Senator Dole voted against creating the student loan program. Ohio State adopted our direct loan program. They must not be in the direct loan program, which gives you the right to pay your loan back as a percentage of your income, because Senator Dole led the fight against the direct loan program. And they must believe we should start the 21st century as the only great nation in the world with no one in the president's cabinet to represent education, because that is part of the Dole-Kemp program for the 21st century. Get rid of the Department of Education. I welcome anyone to these rallies, and I welcome you to theirs. I hope you will never go to theirs and stop them from speaking. I believe in free speech at every university in America. Now, where was it? We just signed a contract with IBM in which the United States and IBM will produce a supercomputer that will do more calculations in a second than you can do at home tonight on your handheld calculator in 30,000 years. Recently, scientists were able to have movement in laboratory animals whose spines had been completely severed because of nerve transplants to the spine from other parts of the body. The Human Genome Project has now mapped out 40% of the genetic structure of the body, including discovering in the last 4 years 2 genes which cause breast cancer. We have more than double the life expectancy of people with HIV and AIDS in only 4 years, which opens the prospects that it will become a chronic disease. Now, all these things are happening. And therefore, what we ought to be focusing on today is how we can build a future together that will be worthy of all of our people. I'll tell you what I'll do. I bet you they won't be doing that a week from today. Everybody who believes in the First Amendment, cheer. Thank you. Now, let's go on. You know, we heard a lot of talk from the other side about fiscal responsibility. And you heard Senator Glenn say that the deficit's gone down in all 4 years of this administration. For the first time, he said, since President Truman. Actually, President Truman had to raise the deficit 1 year because of the war in Korea. This is the first time in the 20th century, in all 4 years of a president's administration, the deficit's gone down. And that's a good thing for America. It means lower interest rates, lower credit card rates, car payment rates, home mortgage payments. It's moving us in the right direction. We're moving from a welfare system based on dependence to one based on independence. The welfare rolls are nearly 2 million smaller than they were 4 years ago. Inconvenient for those who would shout down speakers, but it is. 2 million. Now this welfare reform bill gives us a chance to move people forever from welfare to work, but we still have to create jobs. If you're going to tell people you've got to go to work if you're able-bodied, there has to be work there for them to go to, so we have a plan for that. We are making our families, our neighborhoods safer. We're putting 100,000 police on the street, taking drugs and guns and gangs off the street. The Brady bill has kept 60,000 felons, fugitives, and stalkers from getting handguns, but no Ohio hunter has lost his weapon, not a single one. We have helped to strengthen families by passing the family and medical leave law. I tell all of you students here who have not started your families yet, one of the biggest challenges facing parents, I hear it everywhere I go, is how to balance the demands of work and the demands of parenting. Everywhere I go, people talk about it. The family and medical leave law has allowed 12 million families to take some time off from work without losing their jobs. Senator Dole led the fight against the family leave law. That's why they're screaming now. And they're wrong, and they won't be screaming. So you tell me, do you agree with the screamers who are against family and medical leave, or do you think America's better off that you can take a little time off when your baby's born or someone in your family has been sick? Do you agree? And would you like to see the family leave law extended so that you can take some time off to see parents go to the teacher conferences at the school or to medical appointments with their family members? These are the things we have to do. But there is no choice before you that is more profoundly significant than the choice involving education. Today, I brought with me the Secretary of Education, Dick Riley, who served with me as a governor, and I believe is the finest Secretary of Education ever to serve the United States. I'd like for him to stand up and be recognized. We have worked, for 20 years we have worked, first as governors, then now here in the national government to try to advance the cause of education. Now, you have to decide whether you believe there are things we should do together or whether we should just say, you're on your own. When Ted Strickland said his opponent had said to the school people in his district, you're entitled to only so much education as you can afford, I think we ought to compliment his opponent for his candor and his honesty, because that is what they believe. But I don't believe that. I believe everybody should have a chance to have as much education as is necessary to develop their God-given capacity. And you have to decide. You have to decide. You have to decide. You have to decide. Now, you know, you remember what John Glenn said? I want a country in which every 8-year-old can read, in which every 12-year-old can log on to the internet, in which every 18-year-old can go to college. I would be screaming too if I wanted a country that took Head Start and Big Bird away from 5-year-olds, school lunches away from 10-year-olds, summer jobs away from 15-year-olds, and college loans away from 20-year-olds. I might be screaming too. We are not afraid of honest discussion and debate, so we don't have to shout our opponents down. But I might be screaming if I had that kind of record. Either that or running and looking for a rock to hide behind. We're having a good time here today, but this is serious business. Our ability to give every young person in this country the capacity to live up to his or her God-given abilities, without regard to their race, their income, their region, where they start out in life, is central to their ability, all of your abilities, to build strong families, strong careers, and strong communities, and central to America's ability to maintain its world leadership, not only in economic, but in military and political terms in the 21st century. Now, I'd like to talk to you just for a minute. You know what we have done. I want to talk about what we are going to do. First of all, we know that we have the best system of higher education in the world. We know that our schools are doing a great job with a lot of our students, but we also know that compared to many other countries, too many of our students are getting too far in schools without knowing what they need to know to compete and win in the global economy of the 21st century. So here's what I think should be done in the future and what I will work for. Number one, as we have been trying to do for years, the states of this country must set high national standards based on international standards of excellence for students, for teachers, and for schools. The only way to get excellence in education for everyone is to define it, to expect it, to demand it, and then to measure it. I believe all children can learn, but we have to have high expectations, and people need to understand that 90% of what we need to know is not a function of IQ, it is a function of sustained effort, and we have to have it measured against high standards. That's why I believe that students should pass to move from one level in school to another, and the diploma ought to mean something, and we ought to know that, we ought to measure it. But these standardized tests shouldn't be just measuring your test-taking ability. Everybody should know on the front end what it is. You need to know to meet world-class standards, and that is what should be tested. So you can have a lot of tests that don't mean anything. If we're going to have the test, they must be tied to what is defined as an excellent education. That is what I favor, and everybody in every state is entitled to it. Number two, we should continue to support grassroots reforms, as Secretary Riley has, to give parents and teachers and principals and students the capacity to achieve their highest level in every school in America. Every parent should have the freedom to choose their child's public school. Our balanced budget plan contains funds to create 3,000 new schools, charter schools, schools that are free to innovate, to demand high standards, schools that survive only if they produce results. The states already have money to begin that, and I urge them to do it. But before parents can exercise the right sort of choice, they have to have enough information. So today, again, let me say, I challenge the states and the school districts of America to publish report cards on every school and to put them on the internet. Parents should be able to compare class size, reading scores, safety records with all the schools in their district, all the schools in their state, and with schools across the country. We need to know how our schools are doing, and the schools should have a report card accessible to every parent in the United States, in every state, and every community. Number three, we should do, as Ted Strickland says, in our balanced budget plan, we have a plan that will lower the interest rates on borrowing for school districts that are desperate to build cafeterias, new facilities, remodeled facilities. There are almost 52 million children in school this year. This is the first year when there have been more children in our school systems across America than were there during the baby boom years. The first year. I have been to school after school after school where people are running out of the classrooms, where the conditions are broken down, the schools don't have the money to fix them, where beautiful old buildings are surrounded by trailers taking up the extra students. We have to do this together now. Number four, we ought to work hard to make our schools, all our schools, places of values and learning, not violence. We have supported zero tolerance for guns in schools. We have encouraged schools to adopt school uniform policies. We've helped communities to enforce truancy laws and curfews. We fought hard to protect the Safe and Drug-Free Schools program from slashing cuts because all of our children early in life need to see one of those DARE officers or other role models up in their classroom saying, these drugs can kill you. They're not just illegal, they're wrong, they can kill you. We need to do that, and we should support it. I have also challenged all of our schools to a broad national goal. Every child in America should be able to read independently by the third grade. 40% of our children still cannot do that. I want to send 30,000 reading specialists and National Service Corps, AmeriCorps volunteers around the country to form an army of 1 million people to make sure that by the year 2000, all of our third graders can read independently. In the budget I signed last month, we increased the number of work-study jobs for college students by a third, by 200,000. That many more work-study slots. Now, I want to ask you something. I have recommended that at least 100,000 of those new work-study slots be allocated to young people who are willing to work to teach children to read. Would you help do that? Will you support that goal? Will you help us? Think what it would mean for America if every 8-year-old in this country could hold up a book and say, I can read this all by myself. We can do that. The next thing we have to do is to hook up every classroom and library in America to the internet by the year 2000. You know, 4 years ago, nobody but nuclear physicists had ever heard of the internet. Today, even my cat, Socks, has his own web page. Now, amazing that. I meet kids all the time, been talking to my cat on the internet. It's an amazing thing. By the time a child born today is old enough to read, there will be 100 million people on the internet. We must connect all of our classrooms and libraries to that information superhighway by the year 2000. Here in Ohio and 18 other states this past weekend, a Net Day was held in which business people, computer technicians, students, parents, teachers all worked to hook up their schools. Now, let me tell you what this means. I have asked the Federal Communications Commission to authorize an E-rate, a rate that would say all the schools and libraries in America will be able to hook up to the internet for free. We've committed, actually, the internet's even getting overloaded now, so we've committed another $100 million to creating a new, expanded, upgraded, next-generation internet to handle all of you who want to get on it. Now, if you're not a computer wizard like me, let me explain in plain language what it means. If we can hook up all of our classrooms to the information superhighway, to the internet, to the World Wide Web, what it means is, in those school districts Ted Strickland was talking about in Southern Ohio, in the poorest inner-city school districts in America, in the most remote school districts in the far reaches of the high plains in America, for the first time ever, they and the schools in all the richest districts and the middle-class districts, for the first time ever, will have access to the same information in the same way at the same time. It will revolutionize educational opportunity in America, and we owe it to our children to do just that. And I hope you will support it. And finally, I want you to help me in this election and afterward to open the doors of college education to all Americans. Everybody who wants to go, who is willing to work, should be able to go. We have improved the student loan program. This direct loan program that Ohio State participates in has saved the average college student $200 and lots of time. But most important of all, it says you can pay your college loan back as a percentage of your income. So no student ever now needs to fear borrowing money to go to college for fear they'll go broke paying the loans off, because you can pay it back as a percentage of your income. It is a very important thing. Secondly, we signed the biggest increase in Pell Grants last month in 20 years. We did add 200,000 people to work study. We've got almost 70,000 young people who've now earned money for college through AmeriCorps. But I want to do 3 more things and ask you to help me. Number one, not everybody in America is or can go to a place like Ohio State, but almost every American of any age who needs further education is within driving distance of a good community college. I want to make 2 years of education after high school as universal as a high school diploma is today. And we can do it. We can do it. We can do it by simply saying, you can deduct the cost of your tuition dollar for dollar from your tax bill, a Hope Scholarship in the form of a $1,500 tax credit. That will revolutionize education. Number two, We should give every family a deduction of up to $10,000 a year for the cost of college tuition at any place of higher education, undergraduate or graduate, in the United States of America. And number three, we should expand IRAs so that families can save in these individual retirement accounts and then withdraw from them without any tax penalty if the money's used to pay for college or buying a first-time home or dealing with a family medical cost. These things will allow us to say that middle-income families will never be taxed on the money they save and spend for college. It will revolutionize the capacity of people to finance a college education in America. Now again, I say, I want you to think about what our country should look like in the 21st century. What is your vision for America then? What is your vision for America when your children are your age? That is what this whole thing is about. So as you go to the polls, and as you debate this with your friends and neighbors over the next week, and as you encourage a vigorous exchange, think about this. And think about this last point. Look around this hall today. Look around this hall today. We have people of all kinds of different political views and genders and ethnic backgrounds and religions and races. There is no places in America, there's no place in America anymore where you can't find some measure of diversity. I was in Detroit the other day, and I was told that in Wayne County, there are people from 141 different racial and ethnic groups. 141 in one county in America. There are only 192 different national groups represented at the Olympics. Amazing. But you look at the rest of the world, pick up the paper on any day, and you read about the Middle East or Bosnia or Northern Ireland or Rwanda or Burundi. All over the world, people literally torn apart by their differences. Why? Because there is something in human nature that makes people have to believe that they can only be important if they're looking down on someone else. Well, whatever's wrong with me, at least I'm not them. Now, we're trying to beat that rap. And that's why we cannot tolerate hatred or intolerance in this country. That's why America reacted so strongly against the horror of Oklahoma City. That's why America reacted so strongly against the church burnings and the desecration of synagogues and Islamic centers in America. That's why we know that. We know that. And let me tell you, for all the other issues I've talked about today, it is just as important for you to be able to say in your heart that you want to build a bridge to the 21st century, big enough, wide enough, strong enough for everybody to walk across. And if someone stands up and says, I believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence, and I'm willing to show up and do my job at work or as a student or in some other way tomorrow, I'm going to obey the law and be a responsible citizen, you need to be able to say back, I need to know nothing else about you. You're part of my America. I will join hands with you, and we will walk into the 21st century together. Thank you, Ohio. Thank you. God bless you. Be there with us next Tuesday.